Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to take a deep dive into something
Okay.
that's pretty timeless, but maybe even more relevant today than ever.
Hmm.
And that's knowing who you're dealing with and why it's crucial to not offend the wrong person.
Right.
Our guide for this exploration is Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power.
Okay.
Specifically, Law 19.
All right.
We'll be unpacking some timeless strategies and even examining a few juicy historical examples to see
Interesting.
how this law has played out in the past.
You know, it's fascinating how this idea
Yeah.
resonates across centuries.
Hmm.
We tend to think of power dynamics as something from the history books,
Yeah,
but they really are everywhere from the workplace to our personal lives.
right.
And underestimating someone, even unintentionally, can have some serious consequences.
I'm already intrigued.
Yeah.
So it's not just about avoiding making enemies, is it?
No.
What about leveraging this knowledge to actually increase our own influence? How does that work?
Think of every interaction you have as a chess move. You're either strengthening your position or weakening it.
Hmm.
If you misread your opponent, you might make a move that seems brilliant.
Hmm.
But it could backfire spectacularly because you didn't fully grasp who you were dealing with.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this applies to everyday situations.
Right.
Can you give me an example?
Well, the book uses the rather striking example of Al Capone.
Way to go, Capone.
Yeah.
Seriously. The guy known for, shall we say, his persuasive methods.
Exactly. But he understood that even seemingly small offenses could spiral out of control if directed at the wrong person.
Yeah.
He was careful to pick his battles, focusing his energy where it mattered most.
So it's not just about avoiding conflict altogether.
Right?
It's about choosing your battles wisely and understanding how your actions will be perceived by different people.
Yeah.
That's a game changer, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
And that's where understanding different personality types comes in.
Okay.
The book lays out several archetypes that can be particularly tricky to navigate. For example, there's the prideful type, the kind of person who thrives on recognition and is hypersensitive to any perceived slight.
Oh, I know a few of those.
Mm.
Always needing their ego stroked.
Uh-huh.
How do you handle someone like that without constantly walking on eggshells?
Well, the key is to understand that their pride is both their strength and their weakness.
Yep.
You can actually leverage this to your advantage by offering genuine praise and recognition where it's due.
Okay.
But be warned, any hint of criticism, even if unintentional, can turn them into a lifelong enemy.
Okay, so tread lightly and offer plenty of compliments.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah.
Now, what about the insecure types? How are they different?
Insecure individuals are often highly reactive
Okay.
because they tend to interpret everything as a potential threat.
Mm.
They might lash out defensively even when you have no intention of causing harm.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're constantly on guard waiting for the other shoe to drop.
So it's a lot about reassurance and making them feel safe.
Exactly. A gentle and empathetic approach can go a long way in avoiding unnecessary conflict.
Okay.
But then there's the most dangerous personality type of all,
Oh.
the powerful and ruthless.
Okay.
Now, you might think this one is self-explanatory,
Right.
but there's a nuance here that often gets overlooked.
I'm all ears. This is where it gets really interesting. Tell me more.
It's not just about being aware of someone's power,
Uh-huh.
but understanding their specific psychology.
Okay.
The book uses a fascinating historical example to illustrate this point.
Okay.
Nicolas Fouquet, the finance minister under King Louis XIV of France.
Oh, wow.
Fouquet threw this insanely lavish party intending to honor the king, but it backfired spectacularly.
Okay, now I'm
Okay.
really curious. What went wrong? Was the food bad? Did the entertainment flop?
Not at all. The party was actually too lavish.
Oh.
Louis XIV, known for his own extravagance, felt completely overshadowed.
Wow.
He perceived Fouquet's display of wealth as a direct challenge to his authority.
Oh, no.
The result, Fouquet was arrested and spent the rest of his life in prison.
Wow. Talk about misreading the room. He offended the ultimate powerful personality.
He did. And that brings us to another crucial aspect of Law 19.
Okay.
Reading between the lines. Not everyone wears their true motivations on their sleeve. Some people are masters at concealing their insecurities, ambitions, or even grudges.
That's a bit unnerving.
Yeah.
How are we supposed to decode all of that?
Uh,
It sounds like we need to become mind readers.
You don't need to be a mind reader, but you do need to become a keen observer.
Okay.
The book offers some excellent tips on how to do this.
Right.
For instance, pay close attention to seemingly minor details. How does someone react to criticism?
Okay.
How do they treat others, especially those they perceive as beneath them?
Mm.
And what do they truly value? These are all windows into their character.
Okay.
Hmm?
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
Definitely.
like becoming a detective of human nature, looking for those subtle clues and hidden motives.
Precisely.
And it's skill that can be incredibly valuable
Yeah.
in all aspects of life.
Right.
Speaking of modern day power players, the book actually mentions Elon Musk as an example.
Oh, really?
He's obviously a brilliant innovator, but he also has a reputation for
Well, yeah.
not taking criticism very well.
That's putting it mildly.
Right.
He's been known to publicly target those who underestimate him or
Yeah.
his companies.
And that's interesting because it shows that these principles apply
Right.
even in fields like technology, where you might assume that ideas and innovation trump personality.
Mm-hmm.
But clearly that's not the case.
No, it's not.
Understanding power dynamics is crucial, no
Yeah,
matter what field you're in.
absolutely.
It's a good reminder that even in our tech-driven world, human nature still plays a huge role.
It does.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of knowing who you're dealing with
Right.
and how to read between the lines.
Mm.
But what about those situations where conflict seems inevitable?
Mm.
What does Law 19 have to say about that?
Well, here's where Law 19 gets really interesting and perhaps a bit counterintuitive. The book argues that sometimes the smartest move isn't to engage in conflict at all.
Really?
It advocates for what it calls strategic avoidance.
Hold on. That sounds almost like weakness.
Yeah.
Isn't standing your ground always the best approach?
Not necessarily. Remember, this is all about understanding power dynamics.
Okay.
Sometimes winning means preserving your position, your resources, your energy
Right.
for battles that truly matter.
Yeah.
It's about picking your fights wisely
Yeah.
and recognizing that not every hill is worth dying on.
So it's more about being strategic than being right,
Yes.
or even about proving a point.
Exactly.
Huh.
And history is full of examples of people who achieved great things by mastering the art of strategic avoidance.
Okay.
Think about Julius Caesar early in his career. He
Yeah.
was incredibly ambitious,
Yeah.
but he also understood the power structure of the Roman Senate.
Right.
He often disagreed with their decisions,
Okay.
but instead of directly challenging them, he played the long game.
So he was biding his time building alliances behind the scenes.
Precisely. He avoided unnecessary confrontations, carefully cultivating his image and influence. And when the time was right, he made his move,
Okay.
ultimately becoming one of the most powerful figures in Roman history.
Wow.
His strategic avoidance early on was a key factor in his success.
That's a fantastic example of how restraint and patience
Yeah,
can be just as powerful as, well, raw power.
right.
But let's be real. There are times when you have to stand up for something,
Uh-huh.
even if it means offending someone powerful.
Yeah.
How do we navigate that tricky situation?
I can imagine a lot of our listeners facing similar dilemmas.
You're absolutely right. There are times when silence is not an option.
Yeah.
And the book acknowledges this.
Okay.
But it stresses that if you must offend Emboro, you need to be incredibly intentional about it.
Right.
Weigh the risks, be prepared for the potential fallout. And whatever you do, don't overestimate your ability to handle retaliation.
Okay.
That's a recipe for disaster. Because even if someone seems weak on the surface, they might have hidden connections,
Right.
resources, or allies that we're not aware of.
Exactly. And that's why it's so crucial to assess the full picture before making a move.
Yeah.
Don't let your emotions cloud your judgment. Sometimes the most strategic move is the one that takes your ego out of the equation. Now, the book provides some very practical advice on how to apply these principles in your daily life.
Okay.
It outlines 4 key steps that I think are incredibly valuable.
Okay. Let's dive into those. What's the first step?
The first step is to become a keen observer of human behavior.
Okay.
Pay close attention to how people react to things.
Uh-huh.
Criticism, challenges, even praise.
Right.
Those reactions reveal a lot about their character and their motivations.
It goes back to that idea of being a detective, right?
Precisely.
Looking for those subtle tells.
Now, the second step is to choose your battles wisely.
Okay.
Not every disagreement needs to escalate into a full-blown conflict before you engage. Ask yourself, what will I gain by confronting this person? And what do I risk losing?
So it's about strategy, not ego. I like that. What's step number 3?
Step number 3 is to tailor your approach.
All right.
Recognize that different people respond to different communication styles.
Look.
Some appreciate directness, while others require a more tactful, subtle approach.
Right.
Adapt your strategy based on the individual you're dealing with.
It's like we're all speaking different languages.
Yeah.
And the key to effective communication is learning to be fluent in as many as possible.
Yeah.
So what's the final step?
The fourth and final step is perhaps the most challenging, especially for those of us who might be a little more, shall we say, outspoken.
Okay.
It's about avoiding unnecessary provocations.
Hmm.
This goes back to what we were discussing about Al Capone.
Right.
Even small insults or slights can have unintended consequences, especially if you offend the wrong person.
So even if you think you're just making a harmless joke or offering some constructive criticism,
Yeah,
it could be interpreted very differently by the other person.
exactly. We all have different sensitivities and triggers.
Right.
And what might seem trivial to you could be deeply offensive to someone else.
Hmm.
Practice restraint and diplomacy whenever possible.
Okay.
Remember, you're not always going to be right.
Right.
And even when you are, it's not always worth proving your point,
Yeah.
especially if it comes at the cost of damaging a relationship or creating unnecessary conflict.
This is all about being mindful, strategic, and really taking the time to understand the people we interact with.
It is.
It's not about being paranoid or walking on eggshells, but about making informed choices and navigating our relationships
Yeah.
with a deeper understanding of human nature.
I love that. It's about empowerment, not fear. And it brings me to a final takeaway. Something that the book hints at but doesn't explicitly state. Knowing who you are is just as important as knowing who you're dealing with.
That's so true. We can spend all day analyzing other people.
Right.
But if we don't understand our own motivations, our own weaknesses, and our own triggers, we're still vulnerable.
Precisely. The better you understand your own reactions, your tendencies, and your default communication style, the better equipped you'll be to handle any situation, any relationship.
Wow.
It's like having an internal compass that guides your decisions
Right.
and helps you navigate the complexities of human interaction.
So it's all connected. Self-awareness and social awareness. I love that, Dad. This deep dive has given us so much to think about.
Yeah.
It's really a framework for approaching all of our relationships with more intention and insight.
I think that's a great way to put it. It's a reminder that even in our modern world, these age-old principles of power dynamics are still incredibly relevant.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a lot more empowered after unpacking Law 19.
Yeah, me too.
And for our listeners, I have a little challenge for you.
Okay.
This week, pay extra close attention to the people you interact with. See if you can spot any of the personality types we talked about, or maybe even some hidden motivations. Turn this knowledge into an ongoing exercise, a way to sharpen your social intelligence and build stronger, more effective relationships.
It's like a real-life social experiment. Observe, analyze, strategize.
Right.
But most importantly, use this knowledge to navigate your world with more confidence and skill.
Until next time, stay curious, stay insightful, and keep diving deep.